Hi everybody, this is Todd Creager. What I do is I help couples heal from infidelity and other crises. I also help couples rekindle passion to help them feel more alive. I also help individuals that have been in a pattern of negative or toxic relationships learn how to attract healthier relationships. And lastly, I also help individuals heal from trauma. And that's what this video today is about. It's about well, the name that I call it is a success story, how EMDR healed childhood trauma. I use EMDR, which stands for Eye Movement Desensitization and Reprocessing. More and more these days. I'm a certified EMDR therapist. EMDR, Eye Movement Desensitization and Reprocessing, is an evidence-based practice, meaning it's been shown with rigorous scientific experiments that it helps people who have been traumatized to process and move on. And people that have post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, find that this PTSD infiltrates their lives in their work, in their relationships. It really limits them. And oftentimes what we're discovering, it's because of some unprocessed childhood trauma. And I've had a lot of success with this approach, and I'm giving you just one of the examples of a successful situation. Now, EMDR is an 8-step process, and I'm not going into all that. You can definitely Google it and learn more about the process. But one of the things that it does is you get a history of the memories that a person has that might be contributing to the presenting symptom. This person, who we will call Sue, not her real name, Sue presented as a person who had tremendous fear of loss and abandonment in her current relationship with a man who really is not showing any signs of abandoning her whatsoever, even though she was finding them. It triggered her old childhood pattern fears due to her own childhood traumatic memories of loss and abandonment. So we started doing this process. So at this point you get some memories that represent things that may have happened that have contributed to this belief that she has that the shoe is about to drop any second, that the disaster is going to hit, that's holding her back. And so we find these memories. Once we find these memories, and we also do a few other things as well, which I won't go into, but what we do is we start to process those memories with what we call bilateral stimulation. Bilateral stimulation is stimulating both sides of the brain. And what we discover is that when we go through negative experiences, that most of the time our brain just processes things quite easily and we move on. But when there's a traumatic memory, meaning it's something that was too much for our nervous system to handle well, it gets stuck in traumatic memory. And when we do bilateral stimulation, it begins to free up this traumatic memory to be processed as the non-traumatic memories are processed. And we find relief. The way we could stimulate both sides of the brain very painlessly, the most common one, which is what it's named after, is eye movements. So you would use your fingers and go back and forth as the client is following your fingers, moving their eyes back and forth, just like you do in REM sleep with rapid eye movement. You could also use what's called tappers, and they hold it in their hand and it vibrates left to right. There's also headphones, you could listen to sounds left to right. So there's a myriad of ways that we're doing that while we're focused on the memory. And again, I'm not going to go into the detail. I'd rather focus on the results, but give you a little background on what EMDR is. This woman, we focused on two major kinds of memories. Well, two memories. One is maybe a series of memories of her dad being violent and threatening with her mom. So she had this fear of losing her mom at any moment. There's the fear of loss and abandonment. She also had, they had a very close childhood family friends. The parents were friends. The two kids were friends with her and her sister, very close. And her father had a private airplane. And the friend, who was a pilot too, asked to borrow it to fly the two kids, not the mom, but the two kids. Went to fly it, crashed it. Those three got killed. It was very traumatic. My client was feeling really guilty about it. We started with some of the memories with her father, and we found that she went from feeling scared and unsafe to feeling safer and empowered. And she was able to reprocess those memories so that she's starting to feel a little better. We started to then process this plane crash it happened when she was 8 years old. And what happened is, at one point, as we're doing the processing, she remembers that her mom had spoken to some other friend and said, "It should have been my family, not their family. My poor friend lost her whole family, and it was my husband's plane. It should have been us." With this 8-year-old brain, it took it in, and it might be 6. I'm trying to remember if it was 8 years old or 6. It was a very young girl. She took in this memory like, I should have died, I don't belong here. So these are the memories, this impending feeling of loss and this feeling of I don't deserve to live, basically, that contribute to her anxiety and depression. And as we processed this is what happened. I watched this person transform into a person who had a sense of self-worth and self-esteem. She started to ask more of what she wanted from her partner, not afraid if I say the wrong thing, he's going to leave me. She started to be more of a force and an assertive force at work. One thing I didn't tell you, she was bulimic. Her bulimia stopped. She had more control over her bulimia. I mean, she hasn't acted out this eating disorder in weeks and weeks, and this was after not having a day where she wasn't doing it. So there's so many examples of this, and what happened with her is she was able to desensitize and also reprocess those memories to realize that she is someone who doesn't have to live like the world's going to fall apart, and that she does belong here. And that was just something that happened in the past, and that's not who she is now. So I just wanted to share that success story in as succinct a way I can, and this did not take that long. We are talking over a handful of sessions for her to get these kinds of results. I'm not saying it's always that fast, but it oftentimes is that fast, depending on circumstances and a few other things. So I also want to tell you that if you could click on the link there, and it's going to tell you, it's a great article on 5 steps to healing from trauma. And it's a wonderful article. I highly recommend that you read that. And if you need help with any of this, this is the kind of thing I do, and I could refer out, because I do a lot of work via the internet, but EMDR is not one of them. You have to be in my office. And if you're not local to me, I would be happy to find you a local EMDR therapist. But I really don't want you to live a life run by trauma or PTSD. There are tools to help you and free you up. This is Todd Creager, making the world safe for love.